Good afternoon, evening, daytime, whenever you're watching this. Just wanted to say thanks for letting us go through this. This is Group 4's project number 2. This is for communications A235, 12 Angry Men. This is an illustration in group communication. Alex Boyd, Nikki Davison, and Eunice Park all contributed to this process. And as we go through, hopefully you'll see as we've gone across. The assignment. So our assignment here, as being our final project, the team was asked to review the 1957 Sidney Lumet film 12 Angry Men with a focus on the subjects and topics covered throughout the course lectures in the semester. At the end of this thing, we'd like to ensure that the team members have taken one of the subjects and actually reviewed it through using a lot of the key elements of group communication and group interaction as we've gone through. A little bit on our group. So our band of Merry Jewers, the films that went through, you're only getting a picture of my smiling little mug. Nikki and Eunice decided to stay with the anonymous jurors view. And unfortunately, in our group communications as we've gone through over the last couple of weeks, Alyssa and Emery never really jumped into the group. As we go along, we all contributed to portions of these things as we put it together. I had the opportunity to do the first little chunk, sort of the introduction, slides 1 through 11. I also did the summary slide, and as you can hear, I'm sort of laying over the top. Eunice did a great job with slides 12 through 16, looking at those specific elements, and Nikki looked at 17 through 20. You'll see as we go across, as part of what I got to do as the narrator, is pull a lot of the formats together so that it all has one sort of running key. So hopefully you take the opportunity to sort of go through this thing and see it, and hopefully you see that we focused in on it. So the jury is a small group in general. The jury has been brought together as a task group with a focus on determining the guilt or innocence of a young man who's accused of stabbing his father. With our class definition of a group being between 3 and 8 people, this is a little bit large. It's on the larger end, but that's okay. As a small group, it kind of runs through. Within the group, as you watch through the film, the group dynamics actually lend themselves to and from, and whether this is a process of that systems theory or the other elements that kind of come through, the inputs and outputs of the group tend to have them fracture off into multiple size small groups within the greater group of the jury several times throughout. It was an interesting review as you looked at all the aspects. But as we knocked this around and talked about it, one of the focuses that we wanted to do as our group were to focus on the non-verbal communication channels. This is a great opportunity for us to also break this up and take a look at it with those specifics as we looked from start to finish at all of the channels specifically, the kinesthetics, the kinesics that go along with this, the haptics are the movements, the personal spaces, not the haptics movements, but the kinesthetics, which are movements, the haptics, which are the touch elements, the personal space, how close people got to sort of reiterate, either drawing closer or drawing larger distances from each other. The vocals, not necessarily the speech that was used, but how the vocal aspects sort of change, eye contact, how it was used, and how the focus on speed or pressure, relaxation, focus back in on the accomplishment of the task and the different elements led to the communication goals that were happening. So we kick right off into the kinesics. This is the kind of what we most think about when we think about the nonverbal communications. This is the body language, the movements of the hands, the things that people do to add to or draw from elements of their communication all the way across the board. So these nonverbal elements and these cues is body language. And as the photo, as you go through, you'll notice that throughout this entire process, we use the photos from the film and screen captures that we were able to grab to really look at a lot of these elements and prove the points of what we're looking at. So let's begin in here with just each one of these are the sort of the hand motions that sort of run through there. In a lot of this movie, you see different jurors kind of running through. And as you read the slide through there are some key elements that kind of go through. Juror number 3, who ends up being sort of one of the last standouts and one of the biggest ones against this idea of the defendant's innocence, those elements, as they went across, really come to this idea that juror number 3 sort of running away from juror number 5 in the lower right corner there, kind of waving his hand, saying, "Get away from me, I don't want to listen to you anymore," as he was trying to make arguments against him. Others within there, you'll see, I believe that's, let's see, juror number 4, who's holding his nose. He's just tired, and as he pushed on his nose there, juror number 5 just saying, "Whoa, whoa, stop," kind of putting his hand up there. Juror number 3 pointing his accusatory finger across angrily. And then you've got, I believe it's juror number 9, who sat next to Henry Fonda throughout, and he's pointing out on juror number 4 the indentations on his nose, almost sort of looking. And then there at the bottom you got juror number 7 and juror number 1, just sort of explain how hot they are. In this movement, these kinesics, they are also elements that sort of replace verbal. So you've got the photo there of them raising their hands to show their votes. So that's kind of a big one that went across. Some of the body language that was displayed within this. This is the posture, the facial expressions. These all represent those sort of same elements that support what we're looking at. As you see, the tired jurors just kind of up at the top left, they're kind of looking. Then you see, I believe it's juror number 11 and 12 sort of facing each other, talking as they talked about one of his projects there with the crispy cereal as it went through. The gritted teeth of juror number 3 as he listened and got more angry. These elements of anger, exhaustion, disengagement, resignation, shock. That photo with, or that picture with juror number 3 there, look on his face of anger as juror, I believe it's number 9, sitting behind him in just shock. The look on his face of, "I can't believe you just said that," as he moved forward. Juror number 11 trying to engage as the rest of the jurors are just exhausted and resigned. Disengagement of the jurors number 1, juror number 3, juror number 2, and juror 11 just playing a tic-tac-toe game as they listen to juror number 8 plead his case. You see the jurors just exhausted in the lower right corner right before the storm in the movie. And those are all great elements that sort of portrayed and communicated their aspects that they were working on. The haptics, these are the touch elements, the touches that the members went through. This is sort of elements. It was difficult because the jury themselves, there wasn't a lot of touch in the movie, and therefore the haptics, any of the touch that occurred, these were pretty high drama elements that occurred within the entire story as a whole. These touch elements really led to significant events because these were supposed to be folks who never really knew each other. And in fact, throughout the entire movie, you don't hear anything about who they are until the very end when juror 8 and juror 9 introduce themselves and actually say their names for the first time. Prior to that, everyone had just introduced themselves through their work or sort of their background. So here you see this picture of juror number 3 being held back by the others. He's sort of lunging at juror number 8 as he's yelling, "I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill him." Sort of an important point. Other haptics that you saw in there, the touch elements, you kind of see when there's early in juror number 1, the foreman, as he tries to sort of step away and argue, juror 11 steps in as kind of the peacemaker of the group, pats him on the shoulder and says, "You're doing a great job," and pats him on the shoulder and shows him back to his seats. And that's sort of an important part is he just kind of shows that he is truly the peacekeeper in the group and doesn't really want to, he's sort of the wishy-washy flip-flopper. In fact, throughout the movie, he changes his vote several times. Then you have juror number 8 and juror number 9, Henry Fonda, they're reaching up and supporting him as he gets a little weak, and that sort of show of support and almost sort of reminding him that it's okay. Then in the end, in juror number 8 and juror number 3, when they've come to a conclusion, and juror number 3 finally breaks down and admits and changes his vote, juror number 8, almost as a peace offering, assists him, comes in and gives him sort of a supportive, helps him on with his jacket before they go into the juror room to deliver the verdict. You can also see that those folks, that body language, this all kind of comes together. It's a combination of the denial of haptics that as I think it was juror number 10 went on his racist rant at the table. All the other jurors turned their back on him in sort of a means to not only show that they weren't listening, but in also an opportunity to just withdraw from the entire process. And then finally, at the lower right corner, you see juror number 8 and juror number 9 shaking hands at the end as they introduce themselves and sort of this reverent behavior. to shake hands and move forward. Also found as we went through that the personal space and territory became a thing. The space itself, actually, and this kind of created that almost environment of communication. But that space where they existed, they were forced to be within a personal space. And then they were given their territorial space in the form of their seats. Very early, Juror 11 sits down in the wrong seats. Juror 5 comes over and says, "Excuse me, you're in my seat." They'd sort of claimed these things and moved forward. Which I thought was a very interesting thing, that it kind of created that territory and that sort of existence. Now, throughout this, there were other areas within the jurors' room where these folks withdrew for protection, either to the window to withdraw, or back to the bathroom to seek private space, or to the bench away from the table. But they almost engaged at the jury table as a form of sort of engaging personally with the team, and then kind of going back. There were some other areas where you saw the film, these instances where jurors used proximity to drive their point, where they would step in and engage. And here are several examples. You see where juror number 5 and juror number 7 are having a conversation. He's trying to make his point. He leans right into his face and he kind of gets in there. And then juror number 7 approaching juror number 8 in the bathroom, very private space, to say, "Come on, man, help me out." Juror number 8, and I believe it's juror number 4, sort of facing off there as juror number 3 withdraws and pulls himself back. This is one of my top right there is one of my favorite scenes where juror number 7 picks on juror number 5 with this idea that it's being an Orioles fan must be like getting hit in the head with a crowbar every day. And I'll tell you that just from a personal reference, the guy there on the right there, juror number 7, is probably one of the truest Yankees fans I've ever seen in my life. Nothing about the team negatively. I'm just saying that guy definitely represents Yankees. You also see in the other parts of the film where they would group together or break apart to show their allegiance with an idea or a concept. As juror number 3 near the end of the film continues on with his personal bias towards the defendant and the things that he believed, and sort of projecting the issues of his son and his relationship towards, and really puts himself in that position of the dead father being attacked by the son, sort of projecting that forward, and the rest of the members of the jury withdraw to their own little personal group in the other side of the room, looking upon him as he has his breakdown. Fairly interesting to see the use of space there. Now the vocals, the aspects of the vocals, significant impact on the personal attitude towards some of these issues. The rate, rhythm, tone, inflection, volume were all used to communicate those true emotions as they were underlined. Notable details in this, you can kind of see in those videos as juror number 3 yells, and the sort of eye contact and different things, and the speech patterns as you see. Each one of these kind of runs through. So with juror number 2, he's sort of mild-mannered, and there are some of these elements and examples where he raises his voice during arguments with the juror 10 and 3 to convey his frustrations. As juror number 2 called juror number 10 "my friend," and then later asked for a cough drop, it's communicated his dislike for number 10 and sort of those things. And these were sort of the other ones. A very loud and dominant voice throughout the entire element. Juror number 3 displays this in lots of different ways. He was sort of the bully of the crowd, and he went through. His voice is shaky, and it changes throughout. And he's kind of in there, and at the end, sort of his commitment and his development, and almost his resignation that he was wrong as his voice sort of changes. Juror number 4, very, very even-keeled. He was sort of the middle line guy. Wasn't spoken. He wouldn't speak unless he was sort of spoken directly to, or he's very sure of what he answered. As he was challenged in a couple of the elements, and some of his key resignations were challenged, his voice speed and some of the chromatics that went with that, those changed with him, and those vocals, as that sort of happened, he'd move off of the details and sort of become shaky in his voice. Really good examples of how they sort of went together. Juror number 5 is another one. I'm sorry, didn't advance the slide for juror number 4 there. Juror number 5, a very calm, another sort of mellow individual, until he was challenged. When he was challenged about his background and growing up in the slums, he made a very pointed element, but maintained a very stable, confident voice every time he was trying to explain and run things. There was a scene also where he became a a bit agitated as he was, but in a good way, almost excited about the idea that he was coming up with a new idea and moving forward. Juror number 8, he runs the full gamut. He probably has the widest and broadest run from arguing with juror number 3 and driving him and almost baiting him into an argument and a fight, through to where other elements had sort of kind of run across. And this was a soft and sort of friendly voice when he was challenging folks. He never was accusatory in any of these, except for that one occurrence with juror number 3, as he was pushing him into the corner and got him to sort of scream, I'll kill him, I'll kill him. It was about the only time he actually became engaged in deep. He sort of calmly, and that even in that instance, used it to sort of display. And this is kind of that one of those questions where you see that symbolism versus signaling. And I think very strongly, as I look at this, I see that this is a signal of what he was trying to get across. He was angry and willing to fight. And so he was signaling that to him, but it was really more of a symbol of what he was trying to display. It wasn't truly what he was thinking and what he wanted to do. He had a goal and an objective in that argument and how to come out of it. So it was fairly interesting. Juror number 9 communicates his age through a lot of his voice. He raises his voice occasionally, sort of make his point. He also is very, very inquisitive and almost reflective in a lot of his tone. So that was slower, different elements of those as they went through. Juror 11, he's a very friendly personality, kind of went through. Occasionally he was sort of combative, and as he was challenged with his history, his background as an immigrant, he sort of recognized and sort of drew back to it. Sort of interesting as he walked through with his voice, the importance and real value of the legal system, as he tried to explain to others the importance of the jury process and sort of how it went through. He also worked well when he was talking through the racist elements that he was sort of trying to push across. So definitely good stuff from him. Juror number 12, Juror number 12 wanted to show people that he was sort of even-keeled and easy and probably had the calmest, easiest tone. But he also flip-flopped in an effort not to offend folks, and those were sort of in there. He was pressured and would cave and sort of run back and forth. Eye contact as you go through there. The eye contact was used several different ways throughout the entire thing to sort of show the elements that the jury were using. And this eye contact can do a lot of different things. And in these processes, it was used to regulate, initiate or end the interaction. So you see in that example, juror number 8 and juror number 7 are talking, and juror number 7 is gazing off, but juror number 8 locks eyes and holds on him until he turns and looks. You'll see the result of that in a later slide where he turns his head and looks at him. The confrontation, being very, very much in the eye line and sort of looking in with the eye and engaging that direction. The engagement in the form of watching what you want to see. You see in that picture, everybody in the room is sort of looking at the interaction between juror number 3 and juror number 8. Aggression, you see the eyes gazed, darted, it's anger, looking at the attack, target glancing, a lot of those kind of different things that you can see with the eye contact and where it's going. You see juror number 3 cocks his arm back there and he's moving towards, his eyes are fixated on that spot on his face angrily. Attention. Again, there's that shot of the Yankees fan picking on the Orioles fan. And they're looking at each other. The Orioles fan doesn't really realize he's about to get picked on, so he's sort of looking there intently, seeing what he has to say. And the final one in the list there, the respect and reverence as they glance at each other, jurors 8 and 9 as they come out the other end. Some of these other elements you can see, and we've talked about a lot of these aspects, and these are some good examples of that. There's that section with juror number 8 and juror number 7. After juror number 8 has locked eyes on him for a while and gazed at him, he's finally turned his head and is listening intently, versus the image below where he was trying to initiate that contact and that conversation. Other members of the jury looking away versus when they're looking at each other with a big smile on their face. These are some great examples of how eye contact really communicated what they were interested in or disinterested in. Last little area that we kind of look at here is the chronemics, or the sort of time, how they used the time to sort of indicate these things went across, the importance they indicated speed or function, and their importance on it, and how they use the time and commitment and those interactions. The the monochromatic are task-focused and tasks that sort of driving towards this thing they're trying to accomplish, and all of their sort of what they're trying to accomplish. That focus on getting this done, getting how long have we spent, how much time have we been here, versus the importance or the polychromatics, the individual engagement, those sort of the willing to kind of roll and get it right and not just be right kind of elements. And here is an example of how they kind of broke out. As you saw, juror number 7, juror number 3, juror 11, and juror number 10 really focused on, let's get this done. We've talked about this long enough, and this is just sort of a horrible little thing. Now, the watch repairman, which is interesting, who's as the watch repairman, not necessarily the one who's committed to the time, was willing to listen and willing to go through, and would sort of vacillate between the two, and recognize that time was important, as did juror number 1, who was the foreman trying to accomplish a task. The polychromatics, these are the folks who wanted to be engaged and saw the importance of what they were doing. That was juror 5, 8, 6, 9, juror number 1 and juror number 12 really were more engaged with the people in the room and trying to accomplish the task. In summary, it's kind of our review. This is group 4. As we kind of went through, this is 12 Angry Men, this film. As we reviewed it, it was a really good review of these elements that we chose to look into it, as well as the other aspects that we kind of read through. Our hope of completing this whole slideshow is to let others see this specific focus on nonverbal communications and kind of how they went. These signals and symbols that we saw in the nonverbal communication, which we all spoke about in sort of our essay, this was a good example for us to sort of finish up and view. Hope you appreciated it, and hope you enjoyed the time of running through this. Thanks again. Please let us know if you have any questions.